very interesting presentation for us, including his own unique philosophy on life, which is a mix of Marxism and capitalism.
Oh, yeah.
So, I agree with Simon.
Good afternoon, all. Oh, it's slightly off-centre, but we can live with that. Yes, Simon Wilkie, Managing Director of Webmart. Been doing print management for 17 years now, God help me. And before that, thank you. Used to work at Polestar, quite the print industry, and the name Webmart, Web Offset Marketplace. So we've really come out of the industry and look to be the low-cost print management company. We're like the EasyJet of the print marketplace, if you like. And so what we're going to do today is talking about the lessons that we've learned all the way along about buying print. I'm not talking about the selling of print and stuff, although there is a very strong parallel. There is a double-sided business model here at play in the buying and selling of print, in that there's always opportunities to work better together, and that's the thing, the theme that comes out of this. Lazy buyers beat suppliers up. Wanting to actually engage people, you've got to look at the emotional, intellectual and financial return that you can get from working with your suppliers, not just looking at a way of getting the lowest cost per thousand or whatever it is in the short term. And that's where I think there is a difference in our model, which is what I'll try and explain in the 25 minutes that we have in this august place today. Forward, backwards, forwards. There we go. To give you a little bit of context about Webmart, we are an intermediary, so we have no presses, we don't do any design, we don't do anything like that, so we do nothing in that sense. But we do have a bit of technology that we've been developing now for 13 years, which has now estimated over 400 billion pounds of print. We've got hundreds of estimates going through it every day, hundreds of users using it, buyers of print and sellers of print using that. We've now project managed 26,000 print jobs go out. Some of that is in Europe, some of it is in Pacific Rim, but the majority of it is in the UK. So all of the stats I'm going to show today are for the UK. Although, every time you look anywhere else in the world, it's exactly the same. So I haven't found anywhere different. When you look at data in the same way that Neil's come up with, and I think there'll be a lot of parallels there between what he's found and what we found, although there is absolutely no collaboration with the same data. So it'll come up with a lot of the same kind of graphs. Ours are pretty, I'll say. 13 different print buyers in the business, and in aggregate, in our 48 people within Webmart, we project manage 37 million pounds of the print, and we have in total 683 years of experience between us. So our average age is going up quite a long way, but we've got a fantastic team. So, there we go. Typically, what print buying is, we have found, historically, is that you start beating each other up, and you generally have a small group of suppliers. People say, oh, I've got 3 in this category. It's meaningless, it's pointless. I mean, we have 382 suppliers that we deal with over the whole range of the marketplace, and each one of them has a USP. It may be capacity-driven rather than capability-driven, but typically they both have both, and you want them to share them with you. So a small pool of suppliers I don't think is a very sensible thing to do, looking at the way that we've seen things. Negotiation is the key way that you get the best price. Absolute bollocks. It doesn't work that way. It really, really doesn't. It doesn't mean you've got to be a soft touch, but if you work in a collaborative way, you can get a better price consistently. I've got some data we did where people parallel processed, negotiated against system-based pricing, and the system-based pricing always came out better because it was directly related to the need of the printers rather than necessarily being strong-armed with them. Reverse auction, we've never used auctions in our lives and never will, because all it ends up doing is debasing the emotional and intellectual and taking that out of it and just simply using a tool to get the lowest price, and it doesn't work in the long run, in our view. It's time sensitive. It takes a lot of time to negotiate, and that's really inefficient if the only thing you wanted to do is get the lowest price. What we'd rather do is relationship manage with our suppliers, so get to know them properly, understand their business needs strategically in the same way that you do with customers. For us, they are exactly the same. And if I've got to have a choice between a customer and a supplier, my supplier is the more important person, which is an inversion of most marketplaces. Now the reason for that, if you think about it, and you think of this double-sided business model that we've got lots of suppliers at the bottom here, and every one of those has got a USP in terms of time. They've got space, they've got needs, they've got certain things that they do particularly well, comparative advantage. If I understand more about these people down here, when it comes through the little blob in the middle that is Webmart, and I talk to my customers, whatever it is they want, I know where the best place to do it, to intelligently route that job, because I understand the marketplace better than the other person out there. So it's all supplier up, our market intelligence. And that is time. It does take a lot of time to get a relationship, and we'll carry on to this. I think I'm probably going forwards into where we're going. But those are the dynamics that you end up with in a traditional way of procurement, buying print, in my book. And you tend to say there's winners and losers. It's a zero-sum game where you've got to beat somebody up, and if you beat somebody up better, you win, but they lose. And that absolutely isn't the way that you can get sustainable competitive advantage and work well together in this marketplace. And it tends to be lose-lose. If you look at the web offset market in the UK, now it's so commoditised over the years, 15 years, the prices are going down, there's 3 players, they need them, so the prices are going back up. So in the long run, it won't give you the long-term sustainable business from the supply side, or a stable supply roster from the client side either. So we like to think there is a better way of doing it. So what I'm going to try and do today, in the many minutes I've got left, is to show the way that we try and work with our suppliers to buy consistently well over anything UNIQ printed we've sourced in the past. So a wide range of different products. Our average customer base starts at 50,000 spend a year up to 5 million. That's the kind of thing. So we're not kind of Williams-Lee dealing with these squillion, trillion size companies. But over that cohort, which is, using Pareto, it's probably 80% of the marketplace, then there's an awful lot of stuff that I'll share with you that hopefully will allow you to buy print better, whilst maintaining and building relationships with your supply base. So, taking things back to basic, there is no more efficient way of working in any business-to-business marketplace than trust. End of. If you've got trust of your suppliers, if you've worked with a trusting relationship, they will always work with you rather than against you. So it's always worth looking at ways of engaging them and getting trust in them and acting in a trustful way with them. Because these are the 2 things that people want. And then when you've got problems, you pick a phone up, you get a solution. You don't have a battle of emails, you don't have litigation, you don't get all this kind of stuff. Because you're always working together. But honesty is another thing. Being really honest and open with people. If you do that, people will trust you. And these are the kind of core values, if you like, that are embedded within our technology and the way that we approach it. The idea is to get a win-win, because I genuinely believe, despite my rather bohemian look and my northern tones, that actual winning these days in business is we've got to change from being alpha male into female in traits. Because actually, if you think of kids in the playground, all the boys are going around bashing each other up, winning, I'm scoring a goal and knocking people out the way and all that stuff. Whereas females are generally listening to people. How are you feeling? What do you do? How can we work together? It's a much more collaborative world. And I think what you'll tend to find is that business over the next 5 to 10 years, the people who will succeed in business will be the ones that exhibit much stronger female traits. It may be a challenge. But I think even in the print marketplace, where it's always traditionally been, paper people beating up printers when there's a shortage of paper, then printers beating up, all this kind of stuff. There is a very great difference, I think, in the marketplace, and this is giving us a competitive advantage. And I also overlay it with my Marxist principles, because what I tend to find is that where capitalism is fantastic is creating value. So you have absolute rigour in capitalism, maximising utility, all those kind of things. But where it's absolutely appalling is in sharing that value out. So at Webmart, we share all surplus profits, 400,000 is retained in the business, and the balance is shared out amongst the team. So that's where we use capitalism to create the value within our working together, collaborative environment, all those kind of things. And then we use Marxist principles to share out the surplus profits that we have within the business. And I think that breeds a different culture, as you can imagine. It means that everybody understands that teamwork is the most important thing. It's not about the individual. And we don't look just within the business, we look outside the business as well. Because to create value, unique value to your clients, wherever you are, or your supplier, you need to actually understand where that is and look outside rather than inside. The byproduct of creating value on your supply chain is that you will always deliver it to your clients through yourself. So we as a business never look really introspectively, we always look outside. How do we deliver maximum value to customers and to our suppliers? And there's an equilibrium within that. And it does really open up a whole new world of possibilities. And you can probably put that picture in, I actually say I quite like it. So it is about the working together to get where you want to go. And I think if you sell print, if any of you are printers and sell print, you used to be able to go to a customer and say, this is what we've got, do you want any? And then you negotiate and get it. So now you need to understand what drivers there are in their marketplace. What is it about that customer that you want to trade with that they've got to give a comparative advantage to their marketplace to drive the top line of their business rather than saving the money on the bottom line? If you do that and then reverse it into your product grouping, that gives you a much better way of selling and working together, and buying print is a key thing. There's a lot of range of print out there. And you embed that culture into the technology. So this is where Neil's pictures and my pictures are going to be similar in trend, but different in the way that they show it. So the key opportunity, if you like, is that this is an opaque marketplace. Neil's called it a complex category, which I think in standard procurement terms it is. Most people haven't a clue about print. Don't want a clue about print because there are 200 channels to market now, and one of the least sexy ones is print. So this is where there will be a rise of tools coming up because it is complex, and it will always be complex. It's changing all the time. You know, we're just running some FSDUs for a client, which are freestanding display units, point of sale, and as they're coming off the cutter, we're stickering them with a revised price. You know, it is changing literally as we talk now. This is changing so quickly. So it's all well and good. I mean, you know, if you're dealing with big companies like the companies that Neil brought up, to say that, you know, these are the defined specifications, what have you. Actually, in marketing, which is most people we deal with, it's changing so quickly. So you need to have best practice embedded in tools which are flexible enough to allow for the changes in the marketplace that you've got. So this is where our market is very different from Neil's. We generally don't deal with procurement as a business. We're generally dealing with marketing people who need advice and whatever, but also need to react very quickly to the market conditions. So what I'll show here, that's the data that we've got. This is the last year, so obviously this year's data is brought to a customer base. We do it a year afterwards in these kind of forums. But what it shows is the massive range of pricing you will get from any range of printers that you go to. The only objective survey that's ever been done on PrintBuy was done by the Swedish Print Federation. The average range of prices that people who do not know print but buy print, these are all actual buyers of print, the average range of prices they got back for every product was over 200% different. Huge, huge, huge range of prices. Now, that isn't to say that the printer is, you know, at the top is trying to rip you off and the one at the bottom is about to go bust. It's just that there is actually no price of print, and the market is so fragmented, it's really difficult to actually understand it. And it goes back to the kind of stuff that Neil was talking about there. What we found on our stuff is that the average price difference using technology is still around about 48%. That's going to really people with exactly the same price, at exactly the same specification, at exactly the same time. Huge difference. And it's a blind market. Nobody knows whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. And so if I show you a different view of that, this is one that I've just shown you. You can see the price varies given from the product. 10,000 copies of a 16-page A4. It's brochure to DME. And what we did was we pulled together, just for illustrative purposes, 141 suppliers quoted on that job. And that's the range of pricing that you got from that. Some up here, and this is massive. I mean, I think the range was 600% over 141. Some down here, much cheaper. Some of them were the actual the very best printers that you get for a qualitative analysis that I'll show later. But if you look at that, then there's using your Gaussian curve in the middle, probability, there's a huge lot of outliers at the top and at the bottom, and you actually don't know whether your print provider, at that moment in time that you go to them, is a good one, a bad one, or indifferent from a price perspective. You do, obviously, if you can trust and you understand them. But if their prices look out, it's probably not because they're trying to rip you. It's simply because they don't actually know the market is changing so quickly. And so this is where I think there's a strength in breadth rather than necessarily depth of relationship. If you look at the wider your pool, managing it is a challenge, and there's obviously software that we've developed to do that. But the range of pricing that you get is just phenomenal in this marketplace. We've obviously got a lot of printers in the UK and overseas, and we geo-map them, so because transport is quite an important part of it, look at carbon footprinting and all of that kind of stuff. So you can overlay different parameters on here to get the closest to market, etc., etc. And the localised economy in the next 10 years is going to be quite a big thing. You look at 3D printing, and the management of disparate supply chains is going to be quite important. So we do geodata on that. We also do qualitative analysis. This is a pricing grid that we actually give back to our suppliers. And on here, this is you looking as an MD of a print company. On here, we have indexed all of the prices that they've given against their price. That is their price, that continuum in the middle. And we then show them whether they're the highest price, or whether the lowest price is, or where the average price for that job is. And that is 100% above their price, and that is 100% below their price. You can see the range of pricing that they get back. Now this is them giving the same kind of cost rates that you get. So on this one here, they were massively above the average market price. Here, they were significantly under the average market price for the very next job. It's really difficult to predict. You can't predict the truth of the matter, what the price is going to be relative to the marketplace. It goes up and down, but we want to feed that information back to them because they need to have more intelligent pricing decisions themselves. We also give them a list of where they auto trade orders. We have their cost rates on our system. We call it dynamic price, where we do a price comparison of 300 printers and then feed back to them where they are in the marketplace so they can sell more effectively to their end customers, which is really important partnership approach. And we do the qualitative analysis, so we show them not only just price, because price is one thing, the effectiveness ratio that we do in our customers is the price position times the quality rankings that our customers give back to them, internal customers and external customers. You combine those two together. We then take off disputes, because disputes are extremely disruptive for everybody concerned, and add in innovation. And if you look at the way that you get comparative advantage of a print buyer these days with print, it's usually doing the things that are slightly different to your marketplace without hopefully costing a huge amount. A lot of that insight is going to come from your suppliers if you're working with them. It should do. They should be constantly coming up with new ideas for you to give comparative advantage to you in your marketplace when you use their products. But you'll only do that if you've got that sharing and trusting relationship with them. And this is the way that we do it, so we show how good they are relative to their peer group. And we do it on various other things as well. These are the kind of KPIs that you would have, I'm sure, in a big company with SLAs and what have you. But we rank it then against their peer group. Because printers are really good at finding, doing an improvement to their business when they know they've got a problem to address. And so we here contextualise their service to the other people in their marketplace, which allows them to give you a better service, and of course, every other customer that they deal with a better service, which is pretty cool. And that's just some pricing, ranking stuff. But that's actually what the marketplace looks like. And that's it, where you've got, this is our dynamic price graph. So you've got plus 40%, minus 40% on each of those lines, dynamically created on the fly. And it's really difficult. You can't actually know where you're going to be sitting at any moment in time as when you're buying print. So you do need to look objectively at data, and systemically it's important to try and get the visibility that Neil was talking about. You know, how you do it, getting a consultant in, or getting your own software, or working with a partner on that. And then health checking specifications. This is where there is a great opportunity. That example that by the sounds of it, the guy from Oxfam did. You can save a huge amount of money by just tweaking things a little bit. So always ask your supplier if there's an improvement to be had. I was in Holland yesterday, just got a big job which was an A5 which we can spine glue now. So literally taking those two staples out, they saved that customer £10,000. You know, and he didn't need them, just wanted to keep the brochure together. So little tweaks like that can make a massive difference to the spend that you've got as a buyer. So, what in the synopsis I draw to a close, the truth of the matter is, by collaborating with people, working with people rather than against them, you've got this world of opportunity that no print buyer has typically gone into, because it's always been seen as a massively adversarial area of spend. And like anything in life, when you work as a team within your business, you get a much better result. Why should it be when you don't work, when you work with a supplier, you work in a different way? It's counterintuitive. And if you look at any world-class organisation, its supply chain is pivotal to it. You know, from BMW to Rolls-Royce to whatever, any world-class business. And when they get it wrong, it can really adversely affect them. So this is where I think it's so important to try and get that. The opportunity that you get from that is that actually we just won a big account, the account that Mark back there, me and you were talking about. It was one of our suppliers that brought us in to an account because they couldn't deal with it, but they wanted it. So what we find is that actually the strongest advocates of ourselves are our suppliers, and they will actively tell you ideas to improve your business without you having to ask, because you're working in partnership. You have a better focus on things that you're doing well, and if you have open forums with people, they will quite often tell you things that you're unaware of, that is best practice outside of your organisation, without having to bring specialists in to talk to you. You can also look at getting greater security in your supply chain, which is really important at the moment. If you look at most printers, you can't get a credit rating on them, even really big ones. So we don't know, there's some fantastic businesses gone bust. Alderson's the latest one. You know, when stopped trading or whatever, I don't know what their exact legal status is, but you know, they're effectively they're a fantastic printer. So even what people that you've dealt with for the last X years, you've got to make sure that you've got contingency in place. And generally, at the end of the day, you will end up with happier people, both at your side of the telephone wire and at ours. For us, this is an ongoing journey. We've spent so far that kind of money and time and effort in the developing the software, the trading software, project management software in the Yellow Shed of Wonderment in Bicester. Oh, there you go. Sorry, there was one more thing. What we found, there you go, yin yang, which I didn't actually know what it meant, but we did look on Wikipedia. I'd always seen that, and I thought, what's it about? Anyway, it is actually a very good representation of our view on life. Is that whenever there is a opportunity to gain for yourself, it's always delivered by either looking client side, looking at your clients who you're selling to, and reversing their need back into your supply chain, or listening to your suppliers and working with your suppliers to deliver something uniquely to your marketplace to give you competitive advantage. And I think this collaborative world, that you know, social media and all this is a simple manifestation of how you can leverage intelligence these days so much easier than you could ever do before, and sharing is by far the most important trait that business leaders need in the next 10 years. Rather than holding knowledge, holding insight, the more you share with people, the more you get back, and it's a very important trait that I think within print buying and within the print marketplace generally. And on that, I think that is it. Thank you very much indeed.